very interested in music that was composed at the turn of the last century. And just before the First World War, I thought there's a lot of interesting music that was coming out of the collapsing Austro-Hungarian Empire. So I've recorded music by Enescu, Bartók and Janacek. And then of course there was a second Viennese school who were rewriting all the rules of what music should sound like in the modern world. But at this point they're still on the border, they're still on the threshold, they're not sure where things are going. It's full of experiments. A lot of it is still romantic sounding in many ways. But you can see how their ideas are beginning to develop. The Enescu is very, very passionate. It's got huge gestures, and it really speaks to the emotion quite directly. And I think that the fact that it's very tonal in D major, unlike a lot of the music on the CD, creates a very strong contrast to the music. These wonderful long lines that are so typical in romantic music. But the Romanian influences are definitely there, and the interest in older music, which started at that time. So he was looking at the Baroque toccata and trying to emulate that using modern language. It's very expansive, and I really do love playing it because of these reasons. Theatre is very important, I think, to Schoenberg in music of this time. I think you've got very whimsical qualities sometimes, you've got outbursts, extreme emotions, you've got angular sounding melodies. He's redefining beauty. It's very much a piece that Schoenberg was writing to prove that music doesn't have to sound like it did in the decades before, at the end of the 19th century. But at the same time, it's not as methodical as music he wrote later. So it's experimental, but it's very set in this style. It's called expressionist. He's trying to express quite raw emotions. The Webern is interesting. It's probably one of the most interesting pieces I've ever played. He probably never heard it. It was found after his death, actually, in an attic by one of his relatives. It's very much a student piece, and it is unlike anything he wrote afterwards. So we don't have any of these short phrases that he has in later music. For example, like the piano variations, where he tries to express the whole emotional world of a Wagner opera or something in a single bar. it's still firmly a romantic piece, but the harmonic language, the sound of the chords that he uses is already shows that he's trying to change the language of the music that he wants to write. So it's interesting to me as an experimental piece, but it's also, it has the same sort of passion as you get in the UNESCO, and the sort of imagination that you get in the Schoenberg at the same time. Of course, I chose the music that I'm extremely passionate about, because that's what I wanted to share on my very first album, and I hope it reaches as wide an audience as possible.